Morning you guys. So in this video I'm gonna reinstall the turbocharger on the Mazda BT50, the 2.2. I took it off, took it to the engineers. They've had to rebuild it, complete new core, got it back. Now, not an easy task, but it's gotta go back. This is how we do it. So I got my turbo back, and it looks brilliant. They've fitted a new core, because remember the core was broken, and then reconditioned everything else. I think it looks brilliant. So one thing that's a major problem to get back in place are those two screws. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit studs on there. Maybe not these, because that centerpiece is too long, but I'm going to fit two studs on there, and then that way, once this is in place, I don't have to struggle to line up those holes, because the studs will do it. Number one, and number two, it will keep the gasket and everything in place, because to get this lined up with the gasket and everything, you can't see there, you can't get your hands in there, so that's a major problem. So I'm just going to fit two studs there, and then take the turbo to the vehicle and start putting it back. So okay, I've got the two studs in. I'm going to now put that, I've got a whole gasket kit with it. I'm going to put that gasket in, and then the turbo must go to the vehicle, and I must start installing it. So now I'm ready to install it. What I've done is I've already connected the actuator wire, because once it's in there it's quite difficult to get in. And I've cleaned up, I'll try and show you, I've cleaned up the oil return line, and I've put a little bit of sealer on the bottom of the turbo, and I've already put that gasket on. So now I'm just going to let the turbo drop through here, and move that back, or hold it back with a cable tie, and then I'll put the turbocharger in place, because it must go on there. So now I've got the turbocharger through there, actuator in, but it's in completely the wrong position, so I've got to turn it that way. This boost pipe must go into there, and then the oil return at the bottom must go in. I'm going to do that quickly. So as you can see there, I've got the turbo more or less on the manifold. All the studs are lining up, so that's cool. Over here I've got the exhaust pipe, that one stud on, so that's lining up. So once I push it in place, sorry for my hand, everything will be sweet. And then at the bottom you can see there, I've got the oil return lined up on the studs. And if you look down the bottom there, that's why I put the actuator cable on before I put the turbocharger in, because once it's in, you're going to struggle big time. So now it's just a matter of tightening all the bolts, get everything in place, and of course the oil feed goes on the top. I've got new gaskets for it. I just want to put the screw in there so I don't drop any gunk in there. I'm going to start tightening some screws. So I've got those three tight, that one, and the one at the bottom. But what I've had to do, sorry for that, was remove the exhaust altogether, so that you can get your hand through there to tighten the bolts at the bottom. Otherwise it's near impossible. Okay, before I carry on with anything, I'm going to tighten this boost pipe, because if I forget it and I put the air intake back, then I've got a problem. So I'm going to tighten that quickly. The next thing I've got to do is to tighten that oil return. I will try and show you. There. I'm going to do that from the bottom. Remember, I've put two studs in there, so it should be a little bit easier. I won't be able to record that, unfortunately. So I'll show you what I've done. This is now, I'm lying on the floor. This is now the bottom of the turbocharger. I'm trying to focus to get it on. Because the studs are there,
I could easily get my socket on there with an extremely long extension like that and tighten the oil return screws. So those two little studs that I've put on there works a treat, and like that I could get to the other one. So yeah, I would advise any guy to put those two little studs on. I don't know how I would have done it any other way. This took me like 3 minutes and it was done. So yeah, the studs, a must. So to get to that bottom bolt, I've had to use this long T-bar and a long extension. But it's done. Oil return is on. So next thing that I'm going to do is get the exhaust on. I want to put the new gasket on. I want to put the new gasket on with this old gasket. I think it'll just help me. They're only steel gaskets, so, and it's a compression gasket. So the new gasket will compress against this old one. So I'm going to do that quickly and then put the turbo cover on. The heat shield, actually. So okay, a top tip here. When you put the exhaust on, get that bolt in and get the bottom bolt in. You can't see it from here. There, the bottom bolt down the bottom there. Get that in by hand and then tighten this one. Not full on tight, but just tighten that one a little bit. Then take the bottom one out. Then only put the turbo shield on to put the bottom one back. It just helps you line up the gaskets and the plate and everything. Otherwise, you're never going to get that bottom bolt in. You can't see there. You can hardly reach there. So, okay, I've taken that bolt out. Next thing, I'm going to put the shield on and then put everything back. So the shield is on. All the screws are in. Next thing to do is to fit this extension pipe onto the front of the turbo. It's got a rubber seal there, 2 screws. Shouldn't be too difficult. I'm going to do that quickly. So this is the inside of the air filter intake pipe. See all of that fine debris you see there? That's when the turbocharger exploded. So that's going to be cleaned. This whole pipe is going to be cleaned before it goes back. Otherwise you're just going to muck up your turbocharger. Look at that. It's like grinding paste. Pipe that goes to the VCP. The inside of that. You can't really see there, but look at that. That also needs to be cleaned, taken off and cleaned properly. Otherwise you've done all this work for nothing. So guess what I'm going to do. So the next thing to do is to put this bracket on. Once you've put all 4 screws in, you tighten the 2 that goes on the engine block first. Then only you tighten those 2. Otherwise you're going to pull at the back of your turbo. So don't tighten those. Just put them in by hand. Then you tighten those 2 tight, and then only you do those. So okay, I'm going to do that quickly. So the last thing to do then, after you've cleaned it, is to put the air line on, the air filter line from the air filter to the turbocharger. Put your airbox back, new filter element inside, and put the sensor wire on. And then it's a job done. So that is it done. Once you've replaced the turbocharger like this, I would advise you to change the oil. On these engines it takes 6.5 liters or something, so you've got to buy 2 5-liter cans, and the oil filter element. In a different video sometime I'll show you guys how to do that. But yes, replace that. Obviously replace your air filter element, and then I really hope this helps someone. Guys, be safe out there.